Hello and welcome back to Amanda Lane Tarot. I'm Amanda Lane and we are here for the new moon in Virgo. Happy birthday Virgo friends. Some of my best friends are Virgos and I'm so excited that I get to go see them this weekend. As I was getting into the energy for this reading, I pulled some cards at the beginning of the week, meditated on those, and then pulled some more cards for this reading specifically. And what was really coming up for me was this whole idea of being present in the smaller moments of life. Right now, we're going through a huge collective shift. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of heaviness, because of what we've been facing as a world, as a nation, etc. And it can feel very overwhelming. How can I help such a big thing? How can I, explain such a big thing, etc. But what I was really getting, and this is something that I needed to hear as well, was it's important to be present and to not overlook the smaller moments, the smaller moments that make up each day. And this is where our power really lies, is in these moments, times like these that are bigger times also can bring up like feeling, you want to help but you don't know how, or you feel like you have a purpose in being here but you're not sure what it is, something like that. And we can get caught up in thinking about all these things and, being outraged and all of these things, which are like, all valid emotions. But what this energy was sort of telling me is that it's time to start thinking of the smaller moments. And how can we bring that bigger energy of change into the smaller moments of our everyday life? And then alongside that, I was reading this book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. You can listen to the audiobook for free on YouTube. And it's about a narrator, and I'm going to just give a brief synopsis of this story because it ties right in with what I was saying. The narrator is a young man. His family are all farmers. They've never left this small town, and he just has this desire for travel. He dreams about it, and one day he has a dream that he goes to Egypt, the Egyptian pyramids, and he finds his treasure. And so he decides that he's going to leave the family business, become a shepherd, and travel. And he travels, and along the way he meets different people. He meets a man who offers to buy some of his sheep. He meets a man who wants to travel like he does, but is content with just dreaming of the travel. Doesn't actually want to do it, but just likes to dream of it. And he eventually makes it all the way to the pyramids, and he meets this alchemist who has discovered how to turn lead into gold. And upon meeting the alchemist, this young man is so focused on finding his treasure, doing his journey, that he's not concerned about actually turning lead into gold. And he finally gets to Egypt, and he gets robbed by these people. And the guy who robs him tells him that he knows exactly where his treasure was, because he had a dream that some guy was going to come here, dig for treasure, he was going to find him, rob him, and send him back home, where he found out his treasure was all along. So, the young man travels back home, digs up the treasure under the tree where he first had his dream, and he finds it. And, instead of being he's a little bit why did I just go through all of that to go do all of this to come right back to where I started to find what I set out to look for to begin with? And the alchemist is well, would it have been as a beautiful a life for you? On your search for your treasure, what did you find? He found love, he found passion, he found other things along the way, all in this journey. And one point in the journey, he said he was going to give up finding his treasure and just go back to being, what he was before. But instead, he pushed forward. But along the way, he accepted that this was the journey that he wanted to be on, and really tried to treasure each of those moments. And reading that alongside receiving these thoughts and reminders about being present in the smaller moments kind of led me to a deeper discussion on purpose. And at the beginning of The Alchemist, he talks with an older man who's like a wise sage king that shows up. And this man talks about purpose and how everyone has a purpose, and that, you know, it doesn't have to be this big thing. He said it can be as, you know, big as turning lead into gold, or it can be as also in a different big way, you know, going to search for treasure, because we need all types. You know, we have so many different people in the world, and we need all of this diversity, and so we would all have a different purpose. And so when we're coming to think about these big moments, these big things, you know, instead of being overwhelmed by what, you know, can be perceived as, well, what is like, you know, hardship and oppression and evil and things like that, instead of being just like bombarded with that information, I think we're being asked now to kind of take a look at these issues that are stirring up this passion in us and are calling us to act, and think about in what ways in our day-to-day that we can really make an impact. You know, and it doesn't have to be this big thing, like, oh, I'm going to start this whole program, try to help these people. No. You know, it could just be that you're dedicating yourself to show up in the most positive way possible every day, because everyone right now is going through their own sense of a hard time, and that your positivity can bring, you know, light to somebody else's day. It could be as small as that. It could be, you know, deciding you want to donate to a cause you care about, a certain dollar amount of your earnings each week, as if you would like a 401k. It could be that you want to start volunteering in your community at a place that you heard about. It could be that you want to teach your, you know, children about these things that are going on, and so that they can, you know, grow up in this, you know, to help make this change. You know, there are so many ways. These issues are so big. And instead of being discouraged by this giant big picture, I think it is important to realize that we're not alone, and that we all can tackle different parts of this big picture. And what's perfect is that we're all already different, and we all already have our own purposes that we can contribute to this bigger issue. But it's all about taking that aligned action and doing what you feel is going to, you know, like what you feel passionate about, what you want to go in the direction of, and how can you take steps to better that cause, instead of just being like stunned and like taken aback and, you know, bombarded by all this information. So that's kind of the energy I was getting into. And then the cards I got for this reading, the first card that came out was teeth. So take a bite out of life. We've been in this hermit energy for a while now, and that's actually Virgo in the tarot. The hermit card is Virgo energy. And what's unique about the hermit card is that he also has a star in his little lantern as he's like foraging in the darkness. He has his lantern and has a star in it. And the star card in the tarot represents your dreams, desires, your wish fulfillment, all these things that you hold dear in your heart that are your like deepest desires, you know, and dreams. And if you haven't been having time to focus on that, suggest focusing on that for a moment, and then taking that and decide if you've been feeling like you want to take some action. You know, in what ways can you follow that star light toward this action that you want to take? And, you know, we've been playing, you know, we've been in our hermit mode, you know, collecting, reviewing the past, going through all of these things, and I think it's time to kind of come back out and take a bite out of life, you know? It's still time, you know. In the last video I made, I think I talked about the quotes like memento vivere, meaning remembering to live, and memento mori, remember that you might die. And it's in times, and like they were talking about this in the New York Times magazine, that in times like these where there's heavier big picture moments going on, it's important to remember to live in the day-to-day, to remember to live in these smaller moments. And then if we can also take, you know, steps toward helping causes that we care about, that we feel passionate about, it's all about taking those small steps. And you know, we're being guided. If we've been feeling stuck, we're being guided with this guide card in a way out of no way. There's no way we can. But this card is, I mean, the message on this card is literally, you're being provided a way out of no way. So it's all about perspective, you know. And when we are taking a bite out of life, especially after being in sort of a hermit mode for so long, it can be very hard to get back into socializing even, or doing things, you know, kind of coming out of this period of where we're still living in this period of toughness. But we're being encouraged to, this one says naked, dare to bear all. So we're being encouraged to really like let that star that's in the hermit out of its lantern and really show, you know, what is our special gift. And you're like, I don't have one, my gift's not that special, it's only blah, 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 blah. Like, yes it is, that's a special gift. And, you know, it's something that you should appreciate. And if there's something that you love about yourself, but you're afraid to share because it makes you feel, you know, vulnerable. And when we dream of teeth, it's often a fear of vulnerability, or a fear of like being exposed. Same with the nakedness. And so, but right now we're really being guided to like let go of that fear, and like we're being supported in taking this bite out of life, bearing it all, and like showing, you know, showing the world that we're still out here, we're still trying to make a difference, we're still living our lives, you know. And this card, gold, you know, in our lives, sometimes it can feel like we've been handed a pile of lead and we don't know how to turn it into gold. And, but it's being, you know, in being focused in this present moment, it's like the idea of turning lead into gold that is in The Alchemist, you know, is like a heavy metaphor for turning the, you know, lead in our life into pieces of gold, you know, lemons into lemonades, lead into gold. Gold's a little more bougie, so we'll go with that. But in this card, she has her mug is cracked, and she's repaired it with these gold slivers. And it's all about perspective, which goes in hand with these other cards that came out, which is going to be the villain card and the garden card. Go with the villain card first. You can always rewrite the story. This card is about how it sometimes can seem that in our lives that the villain has won, that evil has won, or, you know, whatever. But this card is reminding us that we can, there's like a seashell on it and a little song coming out of it, and then she's about to smash it with a rock. And this card is calling us to rewrite the stories for ourselves. And with this, the garden card came out, which says something lovely will grow from this. It's often these times, it's all about perspective and how we're going to see this. Are we going to push through our fear and live in inspiration and creativity? Or are we going to kind of feel as though like life just keeps pulling the rug out from under us? And with all of these cards, we're being really encouraged to take that bite out of life, get back out there, and to like continue living. So to finish up, I'm just going to do a couple of tarot cards and a couple of the dream cards. I'm going to do 2 cards from each to finish this reading. What angels, ancestors, spirit guides, what messages for the general collective to close out this reading for the new moon in Virgo. 2 cards. Perfect. All right, yeah. Okay, so the 6 of Cups, pleasure, like this couple is dancing in the ocean, they're filling each other's cups, they're kind of like just dancing around, you know. And then the 3 of Wands, this guy is juggling his 3 wands at the top of a mountain, sort of like in celebration. So we have virtue and pleasure, and this is the energy that we're really being asked to step into. We've been doing all of this deep root work in the dark. I'm like seeing like worms and ground and earth. With the garden card, I mean, and Virgo energy that is, you know, also goes along with it. But we're being asked to come back up, enjoy ourselves with the people around us, enjoy the pleasure and everything that life has to offer us, as well as, you know, showing what we've learned and sharing that in some way. You know, he is juggling his fire staffs now. In the last card, he was just standing there kind of looking at him. You know, he's figured it out. So have you. And, you know, you're being asked to really step into enjoying life. And in this way, that enjoying life, also finding a way, if you feel called, to make room for the causes that, you know, speak to you. And it's all about the smaller steps on a weekly basis. And when we talk about the new moon and the moon cycles and phases, full moon, new moon, I think it's really a good way for goal setting in like a smaller scale. You know, in the next 2 weeks, what is one step that you want to take toward a big goal you have? You know, maybe it's, I want to really sit down and think about, in the next 2 weeks, I want to think about how I would really like to bring what I want into fruition. You know, or maybe it's, I've been sitting here with this plan for a long time, but I haven't really been sure about what, you know, am I gonna do it? Should I do it? I don't know. Maybe it's deciding to take like the first step in your plan. I don't know which card to take. They all fell out. Maybe we don't need any more. Okay, this one's the wrong way, so we'll take this one. Color. Put the color back into your life from this card and express your true feelings. So expressing our feelings through, you know, these aligned actions that are tapping into this central energy of who we are and this creative energy that's asking ourselves, you know, that's asking to be expressed, that's calling for us to express it. And remembering that we can tailor the joy in our own life. there's a street by my apartment called Taylor Joy, and I thought it was funny because it's spelled like the name Taylor, but I thought of a pun that was like tailoring, like with clothes. And I kind of think, you know, and I just heard that. And so it's kind of like we can tailor, we can sew in, we can add all of these, like we are the crafters of our own, you know, reality, our own perspective. And it can sometimes feels like we're trapped, but really we have the power to express ourselves in this way. And so this week, next 2 weeks until the next full moon, I encourage you to express yourself, you know, maybe in a way that you've been fearing to do so, and to take a look at, you know, what kind of newness you want to step into. The hermit is walking in the dark with just his lantern, and when we're in this sense of newness, it can be scary because you're like, I don't know what's out there. All I can see is the few steps in front of me from this lantern. Where am I going? Why am I even here? Etc. But, you know, what is in this light that you have, and what does it color? You know, if you look deep into the lantern, this star of your deepest desires, etc., what is it calling you to express? All right. Well, hope you all have a wonderful new moon in Virgo, and we'll see you for the next full moon.